Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming along to the final session of the conference. I really do appreciate you coming along. And today we're going to be looking at creative drama in the classroom. Before I start, I'd like to give you just a couple of moments to talk together about a couple of things. Before I start talking to you about how passionate I am about drama in the classroom and what it means to me, I think it's nice if you kind of share your ideas together. So first of all, just for 2 minutes, very, very quickly, I'd like you to think about, we're going to think about why drama and what are the benefits of using drama in the classroom. So I'd like you just to talk about that for a second. What to you are the biggest benefits and what is drama? When we say drama, what are we talking about? Okay, 2 minutes, I'll let you talk together with the person next to you. Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Sorry to interrupt you. I know you're all mid-conversation. I don't like to. As I said, this session, we're going to look at, for me anyway, from my perspective, the benefits of using drama in the classroom. I actually started as a secondary teacher of drama in the UK before moving into the world of ELT, but drama has never really left me. I'm now a teacher trainer for Cambridge University Press. And I've actually written a drama activities booklet. So it's something, as I said, that I'm very passionate about. I'll show you what I've got for my top benefits of using drama in the classroom and just see if it kind of matches what you were talking about. So first of all, I thought about this. Collaboration in the classroom. A chance for students to share ideas, work together as part of a group. Quite simply, a way to express yourself, yeah? Moving on to think about empathy skills. So kind of thinking about emotions, discussing emotions. Lots of talk at the moment about things like mindfulness, emotional intelligence. Drama is a great tool for that because we're looking at those emotions, sometimes quite difficult emotions, but through the perspective of another person. So it gives us a safe environment to do that. And curiosity, I suppose. The drama environment, I think what for me is so lovely about it, there are no right or wrong answers for drama. It's very subjective. The students have to bring their own opinion. That can be quite difficult, I think. I think our students generally, would you agree with me? They want to know that they're getting things right. And if we get one opinion from one student, the others might suddenly go very, very quiet and not want to give theirs because my idea is different, so therefore my idea must be wrong. No, anything goes with drama. Feedback, really, really super important when using the drama in the classroom. And this is sometimes what I see, that we maybe don't leave enough time for this. And regular moments of feedback. So asking the students, what went well about that? What could you work on next time? Asking their peers, the other students in the classroom, what did you enjoy? Tell them. And not what did they do wrong. And students will initially, I think, do that quite naturally. What could they work on? What could they improve for next time? And finally, some feedback from the teacher, of course. And finally, not only critical thinking, you've probably heard a lot about critical thinking throughout the conference, but something called divergent thinking. Now, if you're not quite sure what divergent thinking means, I'm going to show you a very short video. It's Sir Ken Robinson, who I'm sure many of you will know, talking about divergent thinking, and it's a beautifully animated video. So take a look at this, Sir Ken talking about divergent thinking.
There was a great study done recently of divergent thinking. It was published a couple of years ago. Divergent thinking isn't the same thing as creativity. I define creativity as the process of having original ideas that have value. Divergent thinking isn't a synonym, but it's an essential capacity for creativity. It's the ability to see lots of possible answers to a question, lots of possible ways of interpreting a question, to think what Edward de Bono would probably call laterally, to think not just in linear or convergent ways, to see multiple answers, not one. So, I mean, there are tests for this. I mean, one kind of cod example would be people might be asked to say, how many uses can you think of for a paperclip? One of those routine questions. Most people might come up with 10 or 15. People who are good at this might come up with 200. And they do that by saying, well, could the paperclip be 200 foot tall and be made out of foam rubber? You know, like, does it have to be a paperclip as we know it, Jim? You know. Now, there are tests for this, and they gave them to 1,500 people. This is in a book called Breakpoint and Beyond. And on the protocol of the test, if you scored above a certain level, you'd be considered to be a genius at divergent thinking. Okay? So my question to you is, what percentage of the people tested, of the 1,500, scored at genius level for divergent thinking? Now, you need to know one more thing about them. These were kindergarten children.
So, a group of kindergarten-aged children tested to see what percentage of them would score at genius level for divergent thinking. What do you think?
Almost all of them.
90%. What they then did with that same group of children is they waited until they were between the ages of 9 and 10, and they tested them again. What do you think the percentage was then? 30. By the time that same group of students had reached secondary level, so between the ages of 13 and 15, only 10% were still scoring at genius level for divergent thinking. And for me, that is what makes drama so incredible in the classroom. It allows for divergent thinking. It promotes it. It encourages it. So for me, the use of drama, even in just the small ways, is absolutely crucial in the classroom. So let's think about what is drama then. I'm saying drama, drama, drama a lot, but what does that mean? Well, often, and this doesn't mean that this is wrong, this is correct, but we often just think of drama as things like acting it out, role play, the film, TV, theatre. But actually, what we should consider are the other things that we're doing in the classroom. We're already using drama. Things like movement activities, total physical response, times when we're focusing on pronunciation, when we're using songs and chants. How many of you use songs and chants with your primary children? Presentations, and of course, storytelling. So actually, what's nice is, actually, if we think about it, the use of drama is already there. We just need to kind of give it that recognition, I suppose. And that kind of brings me then to talk about the difference between theatre and drama, and specifically creative drama. So theatre is, of course, when we are creating a final performance. There will be some product in the classroom. It could be a school play even, a Christmas play. There will be an audience and there will be a final product. Creative drama, we're focusing on the process. Those are the important moments. There may never be a final production or performance with creative drama. It links to divergent thinking here, thinking about fluent and flexible thinking. So fluent thinking being the amount of ideas that I can come up with, and flexible being the variety of ideas. So in a classroom, with all my students working in different groups, again, that allows for that. And it can start with anything, a stimulus. Really, really super simple. And it's really interesting as a teacher because you give the students a stimulus. It could be a piece of music, a picture, an object, and what they do with that and what they create is, of course, going to be very diverse. As English language teachers, then, what we do is we take that language they already know and we build on that. So I would like to share with you now my top tips for using drama in the classroom. Using drama in the classroom often means that the tables and chairs get moved to the side, and for some of you, with very, very large classes of students, this can mean that sometimes it is a little bit chaotic. So what I'd like to do with you is share with you my kind of top 3 tips for thinking about classroom management when using drama. Is that okay? And I know lots of you have had an ice cream, so you're probably having a nice sugar rush now. So can I ask you to stand up? Nobody has to come to this stage, don't worry, it's just me here. So, top tip number 1 is what I've called focus. So I use this when I perhaps need to get my students' attention. Perhaps it's the end of the lesson, the end of the activity. And instead of the constant, guys, listen, you know that, when you kind of start to then lose your voice. What I do with my students is I start to do just a very, very simple movement. So I keep my movements very, very slow and precise, and hopefully my students start to copy me. And sometimes this takes a while because they're busy doing things, but one student notices, and then the rest of that group notices, and then their friends notice, and then they start, shh, yeah. And it's really nice to use in the classroom. Sometimes it happens in seconds, sometimes it takes a couple of minutes, but it's lovely because sooner or later, even with classes of 30, you have all the power. So that's top tip number 1, a nice focus activity. Top tip number 2 is what I call freeze. So again, maybe I'm using this as part of a drama game, or I want their attention again. And what I was doing is I was kind of, again, shouting, guys, listen to me. And I started to use the word freeze, and especially with lower primary, they really enjoyed this because they had to freeze like statues, okay? What then started to happen is the value of the word freeze was lost, and they started to ignore that. So what I started to do is every lesson, maybe every week even, I would say to the students, right, what's our freeze word for today? And I got them to tell me. So we changed it, and they felt the ownership of it then as well. I encouraged them to be within limits, silly, and ridiculous words, okay, but something that they give me. Has anyone got any suggestions?
Ice cream.
Ice cream. It's very relevant today, isn't it? Okay. So the freeze command, so if at any point during the session today I say ice cream, that doesn't mean I'm going out to see if there are any still any free ice creams outside. That's just my signal to you guys that we're ready to move on. Okay, what's the word?
Ice cream.
Fantastic. And top tip number 3 is this. As I said, creative drama might not kind of create a final product, but there will be moments in the classroom where we want to present to each other, and it's really nice that, you know, they give a clap, no? And they say, yeah, that was good. What I find starts to happen, especially thinking about secondary students, is you get some students doing this. Yeah, quite sarcastic claps. Or even more annoying this, never-ending claps. And one of my colleagues who I was working with in Italy came up with what he called the clap of satisfaction, and I thought it was wonderful. I use it with primary, with secondary, and even with adults, they love it. I'm going to do it, and I really hope that you join in with me, okay? So I'm going to show you the clap of satisfaction. It goes like this. 1, 2, 3, ah. That's the clap of satisfaction. Would you like to try it with me? Yeah, I know you do. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3. Ah. Again. 1, 2, 3. Ah. Lovely. We do a really quiet one. 1, 2, 3. Ah. And a really loud one. 1, 2, 3. Ah. And ice cream. You can sit down and we're ready to move on to the next section. So they're my top 3 tips when thinking about classroom management in the drama classroom. So thinking about drama, and this is what I was talking about earlier, starting with the stimulus. The starting point is life, not language. And I think in my experience, and I'm sure lots of you agree, that's what the students really, really enjoy, that they are creating ideas. They're starting with that point, and then they're building on their personalities, energies. I've used lots of ideas for many, many different ages and levels, because it really depends where the students go with that. Okay, so let's move on to think about storytellers then. As I said, stimulus and stimuli in drama can often start with stories. This was a study commissioned by Canon in the UK, who kind of did a big vote on who people thought were the best or the greatest storytellers of all time. So here's starting from number 4, kind of gives you an idea. I'm sure lots of those won't be a surprise. What was interesting is I picked out a few more within those 100. And this was interesting for me because actually we weren't just talking about people who write stories. There were directors, musicians, actors, artists. And when I thought about that, I thought, that's true. They're all storytellers. Who do you think are the top 3? Any ideas? Let's have a look. So, number 1, Roald Dahl. My favourite, definitely. I definitely agree with that. Number 2 was Charles Dickens. Who are we missing? You got it. Fantastic. William Shakespeare. And this is when we go dun, 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 and we focus on William Shakespeare. So first of all, I want you to think about this, because maybe you use Shakespeare in the classroom, maybe you don't. If you don't, I'm sure it's because you're kind of thinking, well, I'm reluctant to, but why? I'll just give you a minute, just talk to the person next to you. Why might we be reluctant to use Shakespeare in the classroom?
But I don't know what you could do. More preparation.
Okay, ice cream. I'm going to show you what I came up with, and you can nod your heads like that if you were kind of talking about something similar. So I thought, relatability. Will my students be able to relate to it? Will they understand it? Lots of nods. And quite simply, will they be interested in it? In the next 2 or 3 minutes, I'm going to try to quash all of those theories, okay? I'm going to try to prove them wrong. So first of all, if we think about relatability, if you think about the themes of Shakespeare, they weren't anything new. Actually, Shakespeare took very common themes and he wrote stories all revolving around those themes. Those themes do not change, and those themes continue to be relatable. Things like love, power, betrayal, greed, that never stops being relatable to any new generation. Even if the words that Shakespeare used are more difficult to decipher, actually the themes that he took, we can still relate to them if we find that way, okay? Once we break through that block of the language. This Twisted Lit series they take the themes of Shakespeare and they rewrite the stories into modern day language. I'm not a particular fan of that. I like keeping Shakespeare's language as it is. But it is a really nice series for teenage learners. Will they understand it? Well, did you know that Shakespeare actually invented over 1,700 of our common words? He was playing with language, he was changing. That's why everyone thought that Shakespeare was a little bit crazy at the time, okay? He was actually inventing this language. Things like assassination, cold-blooded, accused, gossip, and of all that language, only 5% is no longer relevant. Other common misconceptions about Shakespeare is that it was the Queen's language. Actually, received pronunciation only came about, they estimate, 100 years after the death of Shakespeare. And that Shakespeare was an art for the rich and privileged. Again, they estimate that about 90% of Shakespeare's audience could not read or write. Shakespeare never wrote those plays and those stories with the intention that one day a student in a classroom somewhere would be handed it printed on a piece of paper to study as a piece of literature. Shakespeare wrote those words to be read aloud and dramatised. It's the rhythm of Shakespeare. You'll know about the iambic pentameter. So iambic being one unstressed and one stressed syllable, pentameter meaning sets of 5. And it was that rhythm that helped people to understand that. And if you think about the English language, it's those rhythmic and melodic signals that serve as the road signs. It's how we know it's our time to speak in a conversation. It's how we know that somebody is feeling the way they are feeling. So we can draw that relation with Shakespeare. So let's think about that, reading it aloud and dramatising it. I'd like to try this with you now, if I can. I'm going to take 2 lines and we're going to think about dramatising that language. This is what I would do. This is my starting point in the classroom with my students. I wouldn't even show them the text to start with, because I want to think about our emotions, our gestures, and everything else. Can I ask you to stand up again? Okay, so line number 1 is, take all my love, yea, take them all. Okay? So we'll break it down a little bit. I'll go first and you can repeat after me, okay? Take all my loves.
Take all my loves.
Lovely. Take all my loves, my love.
Take all my loves, my love.
Take all my loves, my love, yea, take them all.
Take all my loves, my love, yea, take them all.
Lovely. So I haven't even begun to kind of analyze the language there, okay? But from the gestures, from my tone of voice, we can start, can't we? We can start to try to understand what's happening there. Second line, listen to this one. I'll give myself a little reminder. Listen to this one and see if it kind of matches that first line. Everything you stand for turns on to spite you. Is it similar or different? We can already see, can't we? We can pick out certain words, the tone of my voice. Okay, let's try this one together then. I'll go first and you can repeat. Everything you stand for.
Everything you stand for.
Oh, come on, you've got to make me feel scared. It's just me here, okay? Give me more. I want to feel fear here. Everything you stand for.
Everything you stand for.
Okay, yeah, genuinely, I'm quite scared. Everything you stand for turns on to spite you.
Everything you stand for turns on to spite you.
Fantastic. So 2 very, very different lines, no? This side of the room, you are going to be there. Take all my loves, my love, yea, take them all. You're going to turn this way and talk to them, okay? This side of the room, you are going to respond not so nicely. You are going to reply to them with a, everything you stand for turns on to spite you, okay? Scare them, okay? Are we ready? Take all my loves. You're the lovely side of the room. It was nothing personal, by the way. It was just coincidence. Okay, you ready? I'll do it with you this time. Take all my loves, my love, yea, take them all. Everything you stand for turns on to spite you. Do it one more time. I think you can scare them more. Ready? Take all my loves, my love, yea, take them all. Everything you stand for turns on to spite you. Fantastic. I think that deserves a clap of satisfaction. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. An ice cream, you can sit down. Line number 1, take all my loves, my love, yea, take them all. Shakespeare was actually talking, when he said, take all my loves, he was saying, take everything I have, take all my possessions. Any ideas where that line comes from? Any guesses? Romeo and Juliet, it's a good guess. It was actually taken from one of the sonnets, that line. What about the second one? Everything you stand for turns on to spite you. Any guesses? Hamlet. That line was actually written by Mr. Marshall Mathers, otherwise known as Eminem. And that takes me back to my point about Shakespeare never being intended to be studied as a piece of text. There are many, many links, and there's actually a company that go around called Shakespeare Hip Hop, who talk about the evolution of Shakespeare into hip hop, that rhythm. And when your students say, but I don't understand it. Well, actually, if we take lots of the lyrics from common hip hop songs, they are also very, very difficult to understand until we start to hear them. So very quickly, and just for fun, we're going to play a little game. It's called Shakespeare or hip hop. I'm going to read a line to you, and all you have to do is tell me if you think it was written by the great bard or by a common day hip hop artist. You ready? Yes. Feeling confident?
No.
No? Line number 1. Hands to the heavens, no man, no weapon, formed against, yes, glory is destined. Hands up for Shakespeare. Hip hop. Line number 1, hands to the heavens, no man, no weapon. That was actually written by Common and John Legend. That was hip hop. Well done if you said hip hop. Line number 2. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage. Shakespeare? Hip hop? That one was Shakespeare. Very well done. That was taken from Macbeth. Number 3. Men's eyes were made to look and let them gaze. I will not budge for no man's pleasure. Shakespeare? Oh, some very confident Shakespeares there. Hip hop? Well done if you said Shakespeare. That was Romeo and Juliet. Anyone 3 out of 3 so far? Fantastic. Congratulations. Number 4, we've got 2 more. If you're ever up in Denmark on a moonlit night, you'll hear Ophelia's sad song when the full moon's bright. Shakespeare? Hip hop? Well done if you saw my trick. That's by an artist called MC Lars, who actually took one of the Shakespeare themes and wrote a hip hop song about it. Last one. Too many storms have come and gone, leaving a trace of not one God-given ray. Shakespeare? Hip hop? Everyone who's given up? That was my favorite. That was TLC. Waterfalls. So a really nice way, and I've actually used this with teenage students to actually point out that when we say we don't understand it, when we say that we can't relate to it, we can if we find a way around it. So using Shakespeare in class is an opportunity, of course, to focus on, as I was talking about, the rhythm, intonation, communicating feeling. And using plays and scripts in general, it means that memorization is not necessarily. It's a really nice opportunity, actually, for lots of students who constantly have to memorize. Using a script is a really nice technique when their friend can stand behind them with the script and they feed them the lines. So they're reading, feeding them the lines, and then the person in front can focus on communicating that feeling. And a chance to bring the text to life, to experiment, to collaborate, and, as I said earlier, to give and receive feedback. So if you think about those themes from Shakespeare, corruption, deception, reality, if we think about storytelling, and particular storytelling for primary age learners, then let's think about the themes that we use for the stories with those students. Things like parents, family, holidays, school. You recognize these? These are kind of general themes that you would find in a primary age story. So let's move on to think about storytelling in your classroom. I'm going to kind of go through some ideas for activities to use before the story, during, and after. If you didn't receive a handout, you can take one at the end, okay? And there's a free downloadable resource where you can find all of these ideas and tips and lots of activities that you could use with primary or secondary students, okay? So I'm going to show you a story. This is taken from one of our story fun books. This story is called Ben's Wishes. Now, I don't know about you, but with my class, I'd start with the picture. I like to start with the picture from the story, okay? And I might say to my students, tell me what you can see. So tell me what words you know from that picture. That sometimes is in itself quite difficult, no? And what I want to try to avoid here is language being the barrier. If my students don't know the word for fireplace, if they don't know the word for pan, I don't want them to feel demotivated because of it. So sometimes I do this with my students. I call it thinking outside of the box. I give them a set amount of time to think in their first language. So looking at that picture with your group in your first language, I'm going to give you 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes to talk about what you can see. They put down all of those ideas in the middle of the box. When that time is up, it's time to think outside of the box. It's time to move to English. Now, this is nice because some words they do know, so they can start with those. Well, I know what this word is. It's plates. I know this one. It's fireplace. In their group, their peers can help them to fill in the gap. And as a teacher now, so there's only one of me, and potentially 30 of those, but I'm walking around and I'm seeing, okay, what are the gaps? Where are they struggling? Where do they need some input? Okay, so thinking outside of the box is a nice activity to make sure that they start feeling productive and language doesn't become immediately that barrier. What I then do before I start reading the story is I usually think about a couple of lines. So a couple of pieces of direct speech from the story, and I share those with the students, okay? So here, kind of similar to the Take All My Loves and Everything You Stand For, they are already, you can see, quite conflicting lines from the story. So we've got the first one, but I want to go to school and learn all about the world. And the second one, don't be silly, you aren't clever enough. Can we try this one together? I'll let you guys be the nice ones now, okay? So you guys are gonna say, but I want to go to school and learn all about the world. Of course, with my class, I'd spend a lot of time working on the intonation and the gestures and the emotion of it. But with you guys, we're just gonna go straight for it, okay? Ready? I'll do it with you, this side. But I want to go to school and learn all about the world. Lovely. And this side, you are there. Don't be silly, you aren't clever enough. Okay, you ready? Don't be silly, you aren't clever enough. Fantastic. Oof. So in my class now, I've shared with them some lines, and now I'm ready to read the story. So going back, I'd probably say to them, we've got two lines there. Here's Ben, and here are his brothers. Who do you think says, but I want to go to school? Ben. And his brothers are the ones replying with? Don't be silly. Exactly. Now I say to my students, as I start to read the story now, you're not just listening to me. And there's a chance that some of them will get distracted. They have to listen very carefully, because when it comes to that time for those lines, they are joining in with me in the story, okay? So hopefully it encourages my students to be more alert, to actually listen, and to feel included in the storytelling process, okay? So a boy called Ben had two older brothers. The older boys often felt hungry and often got angry because they were so poor. Go and work in the fields, they said to Ben each morning. Then bring home some vegetables and make an enormous bowl of soup for dinner. Ben always answered in the same way. But I want to go to school and learn all about the world. Ben's unkind brothers just laughed and said, don't be silly, you aren't clever enough. So Ben didn't go anywhere. He just worked in the fields in the rain, planting and digging and digging and planting. So with you, I only shared two lines. I may have potentially shared more with my class, but as I said, hopefully it just helps them to feel a little bit more involved in that initial storytelling start of the story. I might then move on to ask them some questions. Now I want them to predict. Again, I want to pique their curiosity. I want them to think, what's going to happen? What do we already know? And what do we think is going to happen in the rest of the story? Again, lots of different answers, and that's great. If your answer is different to what happens in the story, does that mean you're wrong? No. It means that you are thinking really creatively, and actually you're thinking of lots of different possibilities. That's wonderful. Things, especially things like this, what do you think Ben is wishing for? Yeah, to go to school, to learn, maybe to have some books. Do you think his brothers are wishing for the same thing? No. Probably not. We can see his brothers are quite angry, they're hungry, they're perhaps wishing for very, very different things to Ben. And that takes me on to my next activity. In my class now, my students thinking about Ben's wishes and the brothers' wishes. We can actually now start some activities, some drama activities to go with this. Thought tunnels or conscience alleys are a really nice way to practice language. Again, to get lots of ideas, lots of conflicting opinions from my class. We're not going to try this now because we simply don't have time, but I'm sure you can kind of imagine how this would work in the classroom. In 2 lines, my students would be thinking one line about Ben's wishes and the other line, his brother's wishes. And one student at a time walks through the thought tunnel, the conscience alley. And as they walk through, they hear all of these different opinions, okay? So they walk through, they listen, they get back to the front, and when the student gets back to the front, I don't ask them, what did you hear? Because that's impossible. they heard a lot of different things, but I asked them, what do you remember? Which ideas were more persuasive? What sticks in your mind? So I get a little bit of feedback from them. They get a chance for a lot of input and to reflect on that. And then what they do is they decide which side was more convincing for me. And then they stand on that side. And then the next student moves through, okay? So it's a really nice way to just explore those conflicting opinions. And again, that's taking this stimulus, but if you think about it, that could work for any idea, any stimulus in the classroom. Learn the lines is what we did. So I gave you each side of the room a different line to learn, and that means that they could then focus on those aspects of speech. They're focusing on intonation, on rhythm, on communicating feeling without even realizing it. We went into a classroom in Madrid. I'm based in Madrid, in Spain. I actually tried these activities with a group of primary students there. So I'm going to show you just a short video. I think it's great that I come here and share these ideas with you, but I think what's nice is actually if we see this in action and the students actually doing these activities in the classroom. So take a look. Ready? Find a space. In partners, very good. John, who are you with?
Colonel Pooh.
Very good. Ruben has started. Excellent.
Colonel Pooh.
You two go up here. Okay, we ready? Don't start until you can see that everybody in the circle is watching you.
Colonel play on Saturday. Baseball or soccer. Roller skating or basketball. Try skateboarding or swimming. You can try at a street or park.
1, 2, 3. And there was a clap of satisfaction at the end. So those training videos will be coming soon, okay? And you can find them on the same website as the free downloadable resource on the World of Fun website, okay? And then finally, activities for after we've finished the story. So keeping that creativity going, thinking about how the students can, again, bring that text to life, make sense of it in their own way. And I've just decided to pick out this activity. It's one of my favorites, freeze frames, okay? So freeze frames are, you know, as you would probably guess, the students find maybe one point in the story to focus on, and they create a frozen picture of that moment. So I'd probably have my students again working in groups, and then I'd have them presenting those freeze frames one at a time. Now what's nice is maybe we don't know which point of the story they chose. So the other students and myself, we look at that and we think about how do we think they are feeling? What do you think is happening? So again, lots of opportunity for speculation and bringing that language in and kind of reviewing that. The freeze frames can come to life, so you can tap on the shoulder and that character in that moment kind of comes to life and might say how they're feeling in the moment or what they're doing or what they're thinking, okay? You might like to refer to this as a mannequin challenge. Do you remember the craze that was kind of going around a couple of years ago, a mannequin challenge? And the students, again, that becomes relatable. They remember that. They remember seeing all those videos of Cristiano Ronaldo in the changing room with all his teammates doing the mannequin challenge. So it's a really nice activity to kind of, again, focus on their creativity and maybe what comes next. All of these activities are in the downloadable resource, okay? And they kind of talk about moments in the story that I would recommend them. But I think what's nice with these is that they could be used with any age, any level, and with any stimulus. So they are written for the Story Fun series, but there's definitely things that, regardless if you're using that or not, that you'll be able to use. So thinking about freeze frames, what we started to do in these sessions, and we've kind of been all around Spain and Portugal giving this session, and I started to say to the teachers, would you like to try this? A freeze frame, a mannequin challenge. So I asked the teachers just to get into any position, and then we kind of just took a look at the freeze frame in front of us. Lots and lots of different, the teachers were kind of creating movements like looking angry, pouring water all over themselves, but it was great because even the teachers could actually, they saw they didn't even have a stimulus to go from. They shared some ideas, they got into position, and it was wonderful. We had rooms of 250 people, and my colleagues watching it afterwards and thinking, but is that real? But they're literally not moving a muscle, okay? All of those activities, as I said, can be found in the Come Alive booklet, with lots of other top tips for classroom management when using drama in the classroom. I suppose what I'd like to finish on is we've spoken lots about the benefits of using drama, and I think what comes across quite clearly when thinking about drama in the classroom is the fun aspect of drama, isn't it? Students enjoy it because it's dynamic, it's different, they get to work with their friends, it's fun. For me, I think what always sticks in my mind is when I started as a secondary teacher of drama, as I told you, and I'll just share this anecdote with you to finish because I think this is always what sticks in my mind and what always reminds me of the value of drama in the classroom. We were working on a movement unit with my secondary students. So these guys were about 13, 14, and they were creating a piece of movement. So no speech, no dialogue, nothing. One of the students was acting as the director, and he was directing his other students, his other peers in the piece of movement. Now the director was told, I want you to think of a story. It can be something from real life, it can be created, but it's yours. If you want to share it, you can, but you don't have to, okay? So these directors all had their stories in their minds. And one day they were rehearsing in their groups, and the school counsellor came along and he said, I hope you don't mind, I just want to see what's happening, what's going on. I was quite interested. He'd been working with one of the students in that class for months and months and months, trying to encourage this young boy to talk about a really difficult moment in his life. And he'd said to the counsellor, he said, well, I'm actually working on it in drama class at the moment, he said, and he explained what the project was, and he said that, you know, he was working on this with his group. He hadn't told anybody. I didn't even know. That the movement piece that this boy was directing was actually the moment when he was taken into social services and taken from his family when he was about 5 or 6 years old. And that, for me, just kind of stopped everything. And I thought, this is the actual value of drama in the classroom. Not just drama, but the arts in general. And any moment that we can kind of bring that in, we really don't realise what the value is for those students. But I think with something like that, that's always what sticks in my mind and why I am so passionate about drama in the classroom. And that's where I'm going to leave you. Thank you very much.